Shalom. Giving all praises to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Rachahakodash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders at Great Millstone who rule well. And as always, we give peace and salutations unto the elect. News and prophecy, linking the things happening worldwide to the Holy Scriptures, and also linking the past with the present, which is what we're going to do in this lesson, all right? Dealing with the Tower of Babel, Nimrod, and pretty much how that very idea is being pushed forth by the elites, the technocrats, all right, the bankers of this world. They're now in the position of Nimrod, okay? And we'll go into a little bit dealing with Nimrod. I won't go as deep as I've went in other videos. This is why you should look these videos up. If you go to my page, or if you just type in the title of these videos, okay, News and Prophecy, you know, Land of Nimrod, Part 1, Nimrod and the First World Order, Tower of Babel. Okay, there was a Part 1 and a Part 2. Land of Nimrod, Tower of Babel, this is Part 2. So you can look these things up if you want further information on the topic, because there are some things that pretty much in this lesson I'll leave out, but I'll hit the main points. Again, the attempt at a New World Order is not new. Ultimately, it was something that was attempted, you know, in many kingdoms. You know, many empires tried to establish a New World Order. Okay, many of them used branding, you know, tattoos as a means of registering people. Well, you know, that same idea is being brought about here, and we're going to tap into it. Now, when you go to the book of Ecclesiastes 1 and 9 in the NLT, it says, history merely repeats itself. It has all been done before. Nothing, all right, under the sun is truly new. Some people say here is something new, but it actually is old. Nothing is ever truly new, okay? You know, even the concept of the MOTB, it being digital and technical, all right, in a literal chip is something new, but the concept of marking a subject or branding a subject or putting a particular, you know, mark on something you own, or tagging something you own, is actually a old system. And this is how you know these Israelites aren't studied, okay? Because if they, you know, would just look at this scripture alone and ask themselves, how would, you know, ancient customs as the mark of consecration, you see those East Indians with the dot on their head, you know, branding went back to the Egyptian captivity. The Greeks and the Romans branded, you know, servants and slaves. You know, how would that play out today? Well, it would be via a microchip. Now, there's a quote by this guy, Noah Yuval Harari, and he said, the tyrants of old didn't have the technology that we have. See? So basically, what we're going to do is tap into if Nimrod ruled today. Now, who's Nimrod? All right, let's first get an understanding of Nimrod and the Tower of Babel, which was the first attempt at a New World Order. Remember, after the flood, okay, who repopulated the earth was Noah, or his wife, Shem, his wife, or Ham, his wife, Japheth, and his wife. All of the nations on the earth today stem from that. Now, prior to that, there was a flood. Okay, there was a flood that happened, and we know at the forefront of that flood was wicked behavior. That's why the flood came. The sons of God, which were the chosen lineage, had become absolutely, immoral. They got into idol worship. They became adulterous, murderous, wicked, and all of that stemmed from idol worship. So the Lord basically flooded the earth. And the philosophy that they were following after pretty much stemmed from the serpent in the garden. That philosophy, which ultimately was continued through Cain and his lineage. Okay, ultimately after the flood, you have to understand it was the sons of Ham, okay, that continued all of that garbage. Okay, so after the flood, these are the generations after the flood, Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And unto them were born, were sons born unto them after the flood. So when you get the understanding of what happened here in Genesis, the 10th chapter and the 8th verse, and it says, and Cush, all right, today is the modern day Ethiopians, begot Nimrod, and he became a mighty one in the earth. See, so Nimrod, which the word Nimrod, okay, Namrod, okay, it means rebellion or valiant. All right, and the key, all right, Hebrew word in his name is marah, which ultimately means rebellious or bitter. And that term is in America. Amargo goes back to the term bitter. So it's an Italian word which means bitter. America itself means bitter. All right, the term myrrh or Mary, mara or mare, nightmare. Okay, Marathiam in the book of Jeremiah speaks to America. Okay, so Nimrod, okay, as you can see here, he was rebellious and valiant. Okay, and he became a mighty hunter in the earth. Not only was he a mighty hunter in the sense of, game, but he was a mighty hunter of souls. Okay, and you have to understand that it was the Hamites, okay, that continued the philosophies of the serpent in the earth after the flood. You see, and this is why at the time of, you get Wisdom of Solomon. As a matter of fact, let's get it. Let's get Wisdom of Solomon. The maybe the 12th chapter. All right. Wisdom of Solomon 12:3, speaking of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Ites, these are all sons of Ham. Okay. For it was thy will to destroy by the hands of our fathers both those old inhabitants of the Holy Land, whom thou hatest for doing the most odious works of witchcrafts and wicked sacrifices. All right. Now, this is the Canaanites, but before them, going back to where we're reading here. All right. And as you can see, merciless murders of children and devourers of men's flesh and feast of blood with their priest. All right. So, there was a wicked priesthood. All right. This is why the Lord wanted us to destroy every last one of them, because they possess that forbidden knowledge. Okay, and ultimately it stems from here. Okay, the Cushites, which ultimately were Hamites. Okay, as you can see here, Nimrod became a mighty hunter in the earth. Okay, and as we'll show you, Genesis, the 11th chapter, goes further, okay, into what he did and what was going on here. Because there was a rebellion against the Lord that led to a scattering of that particular plan and the confounding of the languages. Okay, and it says, in the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. All right. And the word Babel means confusion. This is where we get Babylon. This is why this is Babylon the Great. So again, the same mindset that we see here, as we'll show you going back to Nimrod. And of course, he had his following. Okay, again, it said the beginning of his kingdom was Babel and Erech and Akkad. Now, when you look up the different names of these, all right, the Hebrew names of these cities that he built, because he went conquering, right? Same thing that Esau's done today through colonization. Nimrod did that. Okay, he was a mighty hunter. But when you look up the names of these lands that he built, okay, you get kind of like an understanding of what he was doing. Now, when you look up this word, akkad, I believe, or erect, let's see. Erect, maybe that's long. Okay. Akkad, let's see. Subtle. See that? Subtle, akkad. That's subtlety. Now remember, the serpent, okay, Genesis 3:1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any of the beasts of the field which the Lord God had made. All right. And the beasts represent the nations that were on the earth at that time. And he was more subtle. All right. Crafty. Okay. And when you deal with the serpent, again, it wasn't a snake. Going to the root word, nachash. It means to practice divination, to learn by experience. All right. Omens. All right. To whisper a magic spell. Okay. To prognosticate. Okay. Enchanter. Now, when you get Isaiah, the 47th chapter, okay, you get Isaiah, the 47th chapter, America, Babylon the Great, is known to have trusted in his wickedness and stand with enchantments. Isaiah 47:12. Stand now with thine enchantments and with the multitude of thy sorceries, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth. If so be thou may be able to profit, if so be thou mayest be able to prevail. Thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels. Let all the astrologers, stargazers, and monthly prognosticators stand up and save thee from these things which shall come upon thee. And this is what they're doing as they're setting up this digital Tower of Babel. All right, this biometric surveillance system. All right, using things like Palantir and AI to basically forecast their future and give them a victory. Okay, using it to basically, put charges on people before they even do things, using it to govern and rule the world that they're around them. And this is what's happening. Okay. Again, going back here. All right. You see that word subtle in one of the cities that Nimrod built. Okay. And again, it says the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. Okay. And you see Babel. All right. When you look at Babel Street, all right, which is an AI intelligence tool that's very heavy in selling, all right, these particular this particular technology to these corporations that are going ahead and implanting it in your everyday life. You have Babel X that pretty much surveils your online, it tracks you. It's pretty much a tracking system. Who owns Babel X? The software is sold by AI data company Babel Street. See that? And pretty much you have Palantir. Okay, let's look up Palantir. These all go hand in hand. Okay, Palantir. Okay, Palantir Technologies is a software and data analytics company known for its platform that help organizations integrate, analyze, and make decisions based on vast amounts of data. And this is why they're setting these data systems up. Okay, but pretty much we'll get into that. These Satanists are moving forward with a plan to establish a digital Tower of Babel worldwide, Stargate. Okay, all of these things, the Trump is talking about a golden dome. Okay, basically what they're trying to do is set up a worldwide net, okay, that ultimately man will have to merge himself with machine to be, all right, tracked and traced, okay, as a, as a possession on their grid, okay? Now, when you understand Esau, Edom, when he came in power, okay, who did he go to? All right, I just wanted to bring this out, then I'll move on with the lesson. I asked ChatGPT here, did the Greeks and Romans get their system of worship from Sumeria? Now, what is Sumeria? Sumeria is what we're reading about here in Genesis, the 10th chapter. Okay, we're ultimately the beginning of Babel, the Tower of Babel, started here in Sumeria. Okay, and many Sumerian customs run the world that we live in today. But as you can see here, did the Greeks and Romans get their system of worship from Sumeria, Egypt, and Canaan, which were all Hamites, right? The Sodomites who ran that particular those were Hamites. That's why this is called a spiritual Sodom in Egypt. Let's get that real quick. Okay, let's get the book of real quick. Let's get Revelation 11. Okay, and we'll start at the 8th verse. Okay. It says, "In their dead bodies, the Israelites shall lie in the street of the great city, which is spiritually called Sodom in Egypt." See that? And when you go into who ran these empires, it was the seed of Ham. See that? It was the seed of Ham. And what were they into? Okay, left hand practices, witchcraft, sodomy, wickedness, rebellion. See that? So when Esau, as the Greeks got in power, who did he go to, okay, to get his knowledge and wisdom on how he would run his setup? Yes, the Greeks and Roman religious systems were heavily influenced directly or indirectly by early civilizations like Sumer, Egypt, and Canaan. Okay, here's how. Okay, and then it goes into the Mesopotamia influence, the Egyptian influence. I mean, the Greeks, all right, went directly to Egypt. And who did Egypt get their system of worship from? All right, the same guys from Sumeria. That's what pretty much runs the world today. The Canaanite and Phoenician influence. All right, you go to the Phoenicians, all right, the Canaanites and their priesthood. All right, their banking dynasties. Okay, ultimately, this is how the world is being ran today, and I've done videos on that as well. Let's see if I can find that real quick. Damn, it was a video that I did. Boom. No, that ain't it. But it was a video I did. Here's one. Why do we call America the new Canaan? You know, you go to those practices, even, the giving your child over to Molech, abortion and all of that. You know, all of these ways go back, all right, to the heathen, and particularly the Hamites. But there was a video I did going into the banking dynasty. Let's see here if I type in banking. Okay. Maybe here, fractional reserve banking, a debt-based currency, Babylonian magic money. Yeah, Babylonian magic money and modern banking. See, all of these ways go back. Let's see. Priesthood. Let's see what this is. I'll find that video and maybe I'll reload it. Okay, but there's so much we bring out. But there was a video I did going into how the Canaanites heavily influenced today's priesthood and banking system. So going back here, basically is letting you know, and you can look it up. There you go, trade. All right, how they trade, Phoenicians, Minoans, and so forth. But the Phoenicians, the Canaanites, all right, even when you go to Ezekiel, the 28th chapter, let's go there real quick. All right, Ezekiel, the 28th chapter. All right, you read about the prince of Tyrus, which ultimately the Canaanites, which were Hamites, ruled and ultimately became proud because of their ability to trade, all right, and, using the sea to do wickedness, man. Okay, it's a whole system. I wish I can find that video. As a matter of fact, let's see. Okay. Nah, I'll find it. It was a video I did, but I pretty much I went into how this place is heavily influenced by the Canaanites, But this is the spiritual Sodom and Egypt at the end of the day is the point I'm making. Okay. And the Greeks and the Romans pretty much took on, those same gods. I mean, you have, the Trinity, you have, Isis, Osiris, and Horus. You have the Queen of Heaven. All of that stuff is being practiced here today. Okay. And we don't have to get too deep into it, but ultimately, when Esau came into power, he went and got that philosophy of the serpent back from those Hamites. Okay. And with that, you go to Genesis, the 10th chapter. Nimrod became mighty in the earth. See that? So the system that we live in is mimicking, again, history repeats itself. Okay. And as we go here, let's go here to Genesis, the 11th chapter. What was happening here at the Tower of Babel. Okay. As you can read, let's go here. Genesis 11:3. And they said one to another, go, let us make brick and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick and stone and slime. And they said, go, let us build a tower, all right, a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth. See? And the Lord God came down to see the city and the tower which the children of men builded. Okay. And the Lord God said, behold, the people was one, and they all have one language. Okay. And this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them. All right. And when you even look in, when you look at one of the themes of the European Union, let's see, many languages, one voice, something like that. Let's see here. Let's go here. There you go. Europe, many tongues, one voice. And look at that logo here. It's basically mimicking what was believed to be the Tower of Babel, which was a ziggurat where these heathen will go into their high places to lead a rebellion against the Heavenly Father. All right. And going back here, let's go back. All right. We have that same mindset in the rulers today. Okay. They're trying to build a tower whose top may reach into heaven. Okay. With things like Stargate, AI, and so many, they have so many methods, but basically the purpose is to enslave humanity. See? And when you look at the last news and prophecy, we tapped into a few videos, right? Let's go here. We tapped into a few videos. I thought I had it up. Okay. Where ultimately we were looking at some of what these devils were trying to do to set up the blueprint for an AI government. Let's look at a little bit of this right here.
In your article is the throwback to Al Gore's climate trace, which I believe he unveiled at the World Economic Forum, talked about at some point, which is going to be how do we enforce compliance of these regulatory emissions curbing greenhouse gas agreements that all these countries are signing. How can we keep track of it? Oh, I know. We'll have satellites in the air that will be keeping track of all emissions at all times. And oh, by the way, probably everything else people are doing. And
yeah, because it's going to come under the guise of helping the earth. But as we can see, the real agenda, if you've been watching, okay, is to ultimately have surveillance inside of people. Okay, they want to be God. Even when you go to the Prince of Tyrus, okay, Ezekiel 28:2, say unto the Prince of Tyrus, thus saith the Lord, because thine heart is lifted up, and thou hast said, I am a God, I sit in the seat of God, and in the midst of the seas, yet thou art a man and not God. Though thou set thine heart as the heart of God, behold, thou art wiser than Daniel. there is no secret they can hide from thee. And see, ultimately, Daniel was good at interpreting dreams, knowing the future. Esau is basically trying to mimic that with his technology. And he's gotten very, very far with the left-hand power he's been given. See, and the modern day Prince of Tyrants would be Esau Edom. So you can tie then to now. You got the dudes from Genesis talking about we shouldn't read this to link to Esau. Well, that's because the spirit has left those guys. And the spirit is leaving a lot of you Israelites in these latter days. See? With thine wisdom and thy understanding hast thou gotten thee riches, and hast gotten gold and silver into thy treasures. By thy wisdom and traffic hast thou increased thy riches, man. Manipulation, magic money. Okay, which all of these things that we're witnessing right now are basically mimicking the ancient world, but in modern times, in modern, methods. Okay, let's go back. See, rebuilding Babel toward the end game of technocracy. Okay, but here we go.
Where they're going on a daily basis and all of that. But at any rate, that will not be, of course, looked over and studied and analyzed by human beings. It will be fed into the algorithmic data beast, and the AI will tell us who is being a good boy and who is being a naughty boy. Exactly like, for example, Palantir's AI systems were being used by the IAEA to tell us that Iran is, there's something wrong there. I think they're being naughty boys, which led to the censure of Iran by the IAEA and then the subsequent bombing of Iran. This is how things work in the new world order. Some algorithm somewhere will determine whether or not you are in compliance with the rules that have been laid down and what that punishment that should be meted out for breaking those rules should be. And to me, one of the craziest parts of this is that they're not even really trying to hide the sort of nightmarish aspects of this. As you say, the authors rightly conclude that this new regime, this agentic state presided over by these AI algorithms, quote, challenges contemporary notions of inclusion and participatory decision-making, end quote. You don't think so? But they don't think it has to be less democratic. So how do they think democracy and citizen participation should be accommodated? Well, you include this quote, rather than operating solely through top-down regulatory adjustments, agentic policy systems could also learn from citizen signals, feedback loops such as appeals, time to resolution metrics, or even emotion detection in digital interactions. Emotion detection in digital interactions could become inputs for agent-guided policy refinement. In this model, the boundary between policy implementation and adjustment becomes porous. Agents adjust rules not only based on macro-level KPIs, but also from bottom-up input and friction indicators. You see, we're all a part of this big data behemoth, so it's okay. It's learning from us. We're learning from it. It's a wonderful, virtuous system, according to them, right?
Yes, this is the world organism. And I have written about this in my books with a vision for this. One of the more important players was Oliver Reiser, who described the development of a world sensorium or a world brain based on H.G. Wells' idea of the world brain, but with all the technologies we have today. And he stated that people in the future would just be cells in this big organism.
You'll just be a cell. You'll be, all right, merged with machine, because in the fourth industrial revolution, man will be merged with machine, and you'll be trackable, traceable, scannable. You'll be a barcode, basically. See? And everything you do, everything you think will be on a grid. This is their plan. Now, what I did here, okay, is I went to ChatGPT and I said, what would Nimrod be doing today if he ruled? All right, because ultimately, it's only so much. All right, you have to basically apply the spirit. One thing I always say is look up the names of these cities that he established. One of the interesting ones, all right, as he went a conquering and establishing these cities, he's the one who established, Assyria, Shinar and all of these different places. But when you, let's see here. When you look at one of the cities he established, the name is Resin, right? And it's a bridle. Okay, and what I did here as I asked, let's go down here. It's a few things I asked, but basically I said, how can a bridle used on wild animals, because that's what a bridle is. This represents control. Okay. When you look at what a bridle is, it breaks it down here. How can a bridle used on wild animals symbolize a microchip? Excellent question. And the comparison of a bridle and a microchip is deeply symbolic and prophetically relevant, especially when we look at control, submission, and behavior influence. Okay. Now, a bridle used on wild animals can symbolize a microchip in prophetic and spiritual terms because both are tools of control and submission. Okay. One analog, another digital. What is a bridle? A bridle is a device placed on the head of an animal, usually a horse or a mule, with a bit in the mouth. It allows the rider to steer, restrain, or stop the animal. The bridle transfers control from the animal to the handler. James 3:3, behold, we put bits in horses' mouth that they may obey us, and we turn about their whole body. See that? A microchip tracks location, stores identity or financial access, restricts or permits access, responds to external systems or commands. It represents external control over your movement, purchases, and behavior. Okay, Revelation 13 and 16 speaks of a mark that controls buying or selling, possibly symbolic of a total control-like system. You see that? So we're living in the modern day Tower of Babel. You see? How the bridle symbolizes a microchip, controls head moving, microchip controls access. All right. A bridle makes an animal submissive. All right. The chip makes the free human compliant to a system. Signals come from the rider through reins. Signals come from government networks or AI system. Prevents the animals from going its own way with the bridle. Microchip limits human freedom via digital restrictions. All right. That's why they're bringing about a central bank digital currency under the guise of a stable coin. All right. Because they want control. They want to be able to basically cut you off from their system. All right. And put fear in people to even think about coming up against them. Okay. Because ultimately life will be taken away from you. Can inflict pain or pressure to force obedience. All right. The microchip can deny access to food, money, or services for non-compliance. Insight. A bridle controls the body. The microchip controls the life. All right. Through external digital rings. Okay. God desires people to be led by his spirit, not external force. Psalms 32:9. Be not like the horse or the mule, which have no understanding, whose mouths must be head in with a bit and bridle. Okay. The verse contrasts external control with a bridle. All right. Basically, people have become like animals. They've become beast-like. So they need a bridle. Okay. In a sense, Esau is saying basically we need to bring in some form of control. We need some form of order because the people have lost their damn minds in ecstasy and which is his plan anyway. But as you can see here, the microchip, especially in a prophetic sense, the MOTB could represent a modern bit and bridle system that controls humans like livestock, punishes disobedience, and rewards submission to a man-made system and not God. But again, it controls humans like livestock. All right, because aren't livestock marked and branded? Is not the MOTB here in Revelation, the 13th chapter? All right. Revelation, the 13th chapter. When you look up the word mark, he calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark. Charagma, one of the definitions is a mark branded on horses. Okay. And we always type in just to show you. Okay. Why, let's ask, why are horses branded? Horses are branded primarily for identification and to deter theft. That's why you put microchips in your dogs. right? In your cell phones and in your cars, all of these things now it can be tracked. Well, they want to do that with humans. Branding provides a permanent mark on the animal, making it easier to prove ownership and distinguish between horses. So this MOTB system, okay, is an old world idea, all right, with technology applied to it. Okay, and again, like I always ask, did not, all right, let's see, the bridle breaks the wheel, a microchip tied to a cashless economy or digital ID system can be used to break the will of a person and make the person serve the beast. There you go. Okay. Did Noah Yuval, I asked this before and the damn thing just cut off. I was looking for it. Harari say that the tyrants of old did not have the technology they have today for internal surveillance. Yes, he has clearly said that the tyrants of the past, which Nimrod was a tyrant, okay, as we're going to show you real quick, did not have the technology that modern governments and corporations have today for internal surveillance and control. See that? So Nimrod tried to set up some system of control, and I can't wait to see it as a movie. That's one of the gifts of the kingdom of heaven. We're going to be able to see from Genesis to Revelation, even what we're doing here. I believe we're going to be able to watch it. Okay, and in a new body, you think that's going to take forever. In a new body, that's never going to be a problem. Time won't be what we've witnessed here, with time. This is what he said at the World Economic Forum in 2020. In the past, many tyrants and governments have wanted to do it, but nobody understood biology well enough, and nobody had enough computing power and data to hack millions of people. You want to hack people? Well, that's what they're saying. You're now a hackable animal. And this is not medical information. It says neither the Gestapo nor KGB could do it. But soon, at least some corporations and governments will be able to systematically hack people. What do they mean by that? Hackable humans. All right. Harari believes we're entering into an age where humans can be hacked, meaning our thoughts, our emotions, our decisions, all right, and health can be monitored and manipulated. And this is what these people who Donald Trump are throwing in your face are boasting in. Okay. They're boasting in the fact that basically we'll be able to, track sickness and things before they come to pass. We'll be able to heal you before you get sick. All of that. We'll be able to monitor you. Okay. As a matter of fact, let's see if we can bring that up. Let's go. What is his name? Ellison. Okay. Yeah, you could look this up. Yeah, you see that? Larry Ellison, M to the R to the N to the A, AI surveillance and digital IDs. See? Look what he's talking about. This is how AI can help create you see this word, vax. Okay? This is what they're talking about. But really, it's a ploy to surveil you from inside your body. So how can we say that the MOTB ain't got nothing to do with what we see happening today in the form of this device? Okay, you could look this up. Okay, personalized juices. Okay, and you know damn well where it's going. And these are the people who Donald Trump put in your face the day he was, all right, elected. You see it?
Hello, everybody.
Look who he walks in with.
Thank you.
Look how they walking. Just creepy, nasty. Just imagine what they got through doing. Bunch of fugitives.
Nice to see you.
Look how this dude's walking.
Some very familiar face.
Look at these dudes. Look how they come in. What did they just get through doing? This guilty criminal. Look at this dude.
Thank you. Nice to see you. Some very familiar faces.
You just look up these dudes. Sam Altman. Let's see what he's all about. Okay? A complete demon. AI. Okay? Let's look up the other guy who's with him. Okay? Okay? Silicon Valley, which without silicon, there's no microchip. So you got all these tech guys surrounding this guy the day he gets elected. What do you think what statement do you think they're trying to make? Okay? Stargate. Let's see, what is Stargate? The Stargate science fiction franchise is a fictional no, what is Stargate? AI. Because they put all of this stuff in movies as fiction, but now it's right before you. It's a massive $500 billion public-private initiative focused on building advanced AI infrastructure in the United States. OpenAI, Oracle, SoftBank. The goal of this with the goal of constructing large-scale data centers and advancing AI research and development. It's the modern-day Tower of Babel. Trust us. Through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashim Yahshai, okay, the past is meeting the present, but as we're reading here, okay, tyrants of old didn't have the ability to hack human beings. Today we have that. Okay? Ancient tyrants like Hitler, Stalin, or Babylonian kings could control bodies with fear, propaganda, and violence, but they couldn't see into people's minds. They couldn't track their private thoughts or predict their behaviors with precision. Today's technology can. It can track what you watch, analyze the tone of your voice, your facial expression, heart rate, beliefs, moods, temptations, and weaknesses in real time. If you can hack something, you can control it. So again, okay, and then he warns that if totalitarian regimes or unchecked corporations get access to this technology, they could create digital dictatorships far more powerful than anything seen in the past. And this is what we're witnessing, okay? Because what happened here in Genesis, the 11th chapter, okay, was they tried to create a one world government. Now, what I did, type in here, going up, okay, I said, what would Nimrod be doing today if he ruled? If Nimrod, the biblical mighty hunter of the Lord and builder of Babel, were alive ruling today, his role would likely mirror how he's portrayed in Genesis 10 and later in Jewish traditions as a centralized ruler, empire builder, and symbol of rebellion against God's order. His activities today will revolve around control, unification through technology, and defiance of divine authority. Building a global empire / city, all right, modern Babel. Nimrod would likely seek to build a global megacity or digital empire, the new Babel, that unites humanity politically, economically, culturally, even spiritually. They're trying to do away with all of the what they call Abrahamic faiths and bring everything into one, right? I mean, this is a part of their plan. Okay, smart cities. He might champion hyper-surveilled AI-driven smart cities to enforce order and central control, powered by data, biometrics, and totally visibility over citizens. This is what he wants. He wants to be the Most High. He wants to sit in the seat of God. This is Lucifer. And Lucifer ain't no devil that got kicked out of heaven. Lucifer just pretty much, when you read Isaiah, the 14th chapter, is talking about the king of Babylon, and it likens him, it calls him Lucifer, which means light bearer. And this is why the elite call themselves the illuminated ones or the Illuminati, because it just means light bearers, bearers of the light. But their light is really darkness. Okay, he would create a one global language, digital or ideological. In Genesis, Nimrod led people to be one speech and purpose, and speech meaning basically deed as well. But ultimately, the one language was Hebrew. All right, but the Lord confused their plans by bringing about different dialects of Hebrew. And the Hebrew language itself never left, because the same name that was called on at the time of Adam was being called on at the time of Abraham. Okay? It says, today he might create universal digital protocol or ideology. Okay, a global technocratic language, think AI, code, blockchain, or techno-speak that connects and controls all systems and people. This could also take the form of a global belief system. All right, and pretty much AI is a religion. See if it was an article that I remember. Okay, AI and this technology is their religion. Okay, religion goes digital, playing gods, becoming gods, building gods. American theocracy, politics has become our national religion. The tyranny of technocracy. See, they got that bridle, and that's what that mask symbolized. It was symbolizing it's time for you people to shut the hell up. It symbolized that there's a bridle getting ready to be put on your ass. That's literally what they meant by that. It was a ritual. Okay? It was an open ritual, and openly they mocked you people. But competing with God, Harari suggests AI could write Bible, creating religions that are actually correct. So you can see now that these people are in the shoe, they're in the place of Nimrod. Okay? Is transhumanism the new one world religion? Okay? You have this guy, Peter Thiel. I'll see if I can find it. See if we can find this dude, what he recently said. Damn. Man. I just want to get the one part. I played it in one of my news and prophecies, but it was in this interview here, I believe.
Is Silicon Valley recklessly ambitious? What should we fear more, Armageddon or
Let's see if we can do it this way. Because you know you can look up, let's see, Trump.
But the world of AI is clearly filled with people
Fair use.
who, at the very least, seem to have a more utopian, transformative, whatever word you want to call it, view of the technology than you're expressing here, right? And you were mentioned earlier the idea that the modern world used to promise radical life extension and doesn't anymore. It seems very clear to me that a number of people deeply involved in artificial intelligence see it as a kind of mechanism for transhumanism, for transcendence of our mortal flesh, and either some kind of creation of a successor species or some kind of merger of mind and machine. And do you think that's just all kind of irrelevant fantasy? Or do you think it's just hype? Do you think people are trying to raise money by pretending that we're going to build a machine god, right? Is it hype? Is it delusion? Is it something you worry about? I think you would prefer the human race to endure, right? You're hesitating.
Yeah, well,
yes?
I don't know. I would.
This is a long hesitation. This is a long hesitation.
There's so many questions implicit in
this.
this.
Should the human race survive?
Yes.
Okay.
But I also would I also would like us to radically solve these problems.
Right.
And so it's always, I don't know, transhumanism is this, the ideal was this radical transformation where your human natural body gets transformed into an immortal body. And there's a critique of, let's say, the trans people in a sexual context, or I don't know, transvestite is someone who changes their clothes and cross dresses, and a transsexual is someone where you change your penis into a vagina. And we can then debate how well those surgeries work. But we want more transformation than that. The critique is not that it's weird and unnatural. It's so pathetically little. And okay, we want more than cross-dressing or changing your sex organs. We want you to be able to change your heart and change your mind and change your whole body. And then Orthodox Christianity, by the way,
we want you to go further. And this was the mindset. All right, here in Genesis the 11th chapter in the 6th verse, it says, "And the Lord said, Behold, the people was one, and they all have one language, and this they begin to do. And now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do." So what the Lord did was he confounded, he scattered their plans. Okay? Let's go back.
The critique Orthodox Christianity has of this is these things don't go far enough. Like that transhumanism is just changing your body, but you also need to transform your soul, and you need to transform your whole self. And so,
right. But the other, wait. I'm sorry. I generally agree with what I think is your belief that religion should be a friend to science and ideas of scientific progress. I think any idea of divine providence has to encompass the fact that we have progressed and achieved and done things that would have been unimaginable to our ancestors. But it still also seems like, yeah, the promise of Christianity in the end is you get the perfected body and the perfected soul through God's grace.
The elect get that.
The person who tries to do it on their own with a bunch of machines is likely to end up as a dystopian character.
Well, let's articulate this.
And you can have a heretical form of Christianity, right? That says something else.
I don't know. I think the word nature does not occur once in the Old Testament, and so if you
they got to go. There's nothing else to even listen to. Okay, let's go here. I played this before, but I want to play it again. All right, fair use. Let's see if we can.
Ladies and gentlemen, the distinguished author, Mr. Aldous Huxley.
Brave New World is a fantastic parable about the dehumanization of human beings. In the negative utopia described in my story, man has been subordinated to his own inventions. Science, technology, social organization, these things have ceased to serve man. They have become his masters.
Go.
Aldous Huxley's novel portrays a dystopian future under the dictatorship of a world state, where every aspect of human life is controlled, from laboratory creation to the grave. He described the story as fantasy, but later wrote, "The prophecies made in 1931 are coming true much sooner than I thought they would. The nightmare of total organization has emerged and is now awaiting us, just around the next corner."
With the rise of brain-computer interfaces and biometric sensors and so forth, all the bodies, all the brains would be connected together to a network, and you won't be able to survive if you're disconnected from the net.
All life on Earth is going to be radically changed.
It's a fusion of the physical, the digital, and the biological. It's changing who we are.
These people have gotten to the point now where they are openly anti-human.
Everything will be monitored. The environmental consequences of every human action. They cannot happen without digital ID.
Once the digital ID is in place, it's game over for humanity.
See, and this is what people like this is the people who Trump, who really are running the show. And then there's people behind them, funding them and pushing them. But really behind it all is Satan. Again, okay, let's get it. Let's get the book of 2 Thessalonians, the 2nd chapter, and the 8th verse. "And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming, even him who's coming after the working of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders." Okay, Bibles. "This man, NLT, will come to do the work of Satan with counterfeit power, signs, and miracles." Okay, and again, you do a cross-reference that's going to lead you to Revelation, the 13th chapter, where ultimately, okay, he would deceive people by these miracles, okay, and ultimately, basically manipulate the people and being recreated in his image via his miracles, his technology, which all of this goes back to ancient Rome. But again, if Rome had, the weaponry and the technology that America has, this is what they would do with it. Okay, this is idol worship upgraded on a whole nother level. You see that? And this is where we are. Okay, this is, pretty much this is why America is known as Babylon the Great. Okay, Babylon the Great. Okay, because Babel has now been ultimately upgraded. Okay, and it's become technological. The Tower of Babel is now a technological Tower of Babel. And again, there's so much more we can say and go into, but going back here, all right, what Nimrod would do, Nimrod's tower was a technological marvel of its time, symbolic of man reaching into the heavens. They're even talking about going to Mars. This talking point of going to Mars keeps coming up, or being able to go out of space. Okay, he's lost his mind. Again, what did the scripture say in Isaiah the 14th chapter about the king of Babylon who was called Lucifer? All right. Isaiah 14:12, how art thou fallen from heaven, which heaven symbolizes a lofty position. Okay, O Lucifer, son of the morning, how art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet that thou shalt be brought down to hell, into the sides of the pit. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble? So this is speaking of a man. And as you follow the chapter, it's speaking of the king of Babylon, who basically oppressed the people and ruined the earth. They're also called the wicked. Okay, they're here to do the bidding of Satan. Okay, that's who these people are.
And that there is a word in which, a sense in which, the way I understand, the Judeo-Christian inspiration is, it is about transcending nature. It is about overcoming things. And
that's the serpent. The serpent told Eve, right? The serpent literally told Eve, in Genesis, the 3rd chapter, let me just get it. Okay. Genesis 3:5, for God doth know that in the day that you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be open and you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. So you're going to transcend. He basically promised her the ability to transcend. Okay. And we are going to transcend these mortal bodies by being brought into the new covenant, you see. But it says a modern equivalent to Nimrod's tower is a AI, biotech, space colonization, brain-computer interfaces like Neuralink, and surveillance tech. He'd likely be involved in transhumanism. If Nimrod ruled today, he'd be involved in transhumanism, which is a religion in today's world, blurring the lines between man and machine and make man godlike. He'd support data infusion from satellites, social media, implants, all right, biosensors, and absolute control. Replacing God with human power. Nimrod is seen as a rebel against divine rule. Today, he would promote secularism, post-religious unity, and humanist dominion over nature and fate. And this is what a lot of your entertainers and rulers are into, okay? These dudes who pop up, talking things that sound good, but really it's a godless message. Charleston White is an example, okay? Possibly creating a system where AI or the state replaces spiritual authority and allegiance to the divine is outlawed or seen as backward. Military and surveillance dominion. As a mighty hunter, he'd likely dominate through military strength, all right, like Palantir, okay? today Nimrod, all right, would control the world's most powerful military, satellites, cyber forces, and possibly autonomous drones. And this is what America has today. All right. Use tools like Palantir, okay, Babel Street, wow, biometric tracking and predictive policing to preempt rebellion, promote peace through power, but at the cost of freedom. This is where we're going, man. Crushing national sovereignty, just as he unified cities and nations under one empire, Shinar, Babel, and Nineveh. Today, he would undermine national identities and favor a one world government. And this is where it's going. Possibly using crisis, all right, like climate change, demics, war, as justification for centralizing authority under a world system, like a technocratic UN or digital currency authority. I mean, damn. Oh, wow. Using pharmakia and cultural tools. Lord willing, this video stays up. Nimrod would likely tap into, I mean, this is even speaking like us now, media, entertainment, digital drugs, and pharmaceuticals to keep the population docile or seduced. Okay, and Babylon the Great is known, when you read Revelation, the 18th chapter, to have the souls of men. Okay, the souls of men are one of the many possessions that they have. Okay, slaves and souls of men. Okay, you hear about all of the sex trafficking and the drug-induced parties. They pretty much have they have people's souls. All right, but it talks about how through thy sorceries were the nations deceived, and the word sorcery, okay, goes into, all right, pharmakia, all these drugs, poisoning, sorcery, witchcraft, the deceptions of adultery, magical arts, poisoning, so clearly you have people ruling today under the spirit of Nimrod. Okay, but they have more tools, they have more power. Media, entertainment, and pharmaceuticals. The enchantments of today: algorithm, dopamine addiction, social media, VR, escapism, and soft mind control. Okay, so there you go. Okay, many associate Nimrod. Okay, some people say it's Gilgamesh because you have the Epic of Gilgamesh, which ultimately speaks of a flood, and they say the Bible stole the flood story from there, but it was just the sons of Ham who passed down the story of the flood because they survived it. Goodness gracious. But again, Esau went to Ham to get all of this madness that he's ruling the world with today, because ultimately Ham forwarded that forbidden fruit after the flood. Okay? So it gives you the summary here. You can pause that and read that. Okay? If Nimrod were here today, he'd likely be a charismatic techno-incubator wielding AI, global governance, surveillance, and false promise of peace and unity, but at the cost of spiritual truth, personal freedom, and divine order. There you go. There you go, man. And then it gives, asks for some ancient examples of ancient tyrants who wanted control but lacked the tools we have today. The pharaohs of Egypt, Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, Emperor of Nero, of course the Greeks too, Alexander the Great. Oh, there you go, the Greeks. All right, China's first emperor. Okay, they all wanted world domination, but they didn't have the means to do it. Well, now, okay, I say, how about Antiochus Epiphanes? Antiochus Epiphanes is a perfect example of an ancient tyrant who wanted total control. And when you read in First Maccabees, the first chapter, what did he say? First Maccabees 1. And 41. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, and every one should leave his law. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. See that? So they're doing that same thing today, but imagine if he had this technology, it would be more than a brand, because the Greeks branded their servants and subjects. You showed your alliance to a particular god through branding yourself or getting a brand put on you. Okay? So, but yeah, Antiochus Epiphanes would basically, you know, if these ancient tyrants had this technology, this is how they would use it. Okay? Let's see here. If Antiochus had facial recognition, AI-driven predictive policing, social media monitoring, biometric surveillance, central bank digital currencies, he could have stopped the Maccabees before they rose, tracked down secret Torah observance, and hacked the conscience of his subjects with psychological manipulation rather than just pain. So, when we read Daniel, the 12th chapter, all right, let's read this as well. And this is a future prophecy of Yahweh Shai coming to deliver us, but it's coded with terms like Assyria, which the modern day Assyrian is ultimately Esau Edom. Now, who established Assyria? Nimrod. Okay. You know, what's the capital of Assyria? Nineveh. He established these cities. All right. And this was known as the hub of witchcraft back then. Now it's Babylon, America. Micah 5 and 6. And they shall waste a portion of the land of the Assyrians with the sword, and the land of Nimrod and the entrances thereof. Thus shall he deliver us from the Assyrian when he cometh into our land, and when he treadeth within our borders. So ultimately, the remnant of Jacob shall be in the midst of many people, as a dew from the Lord, as showers upon grass, that tarrieth for no man, nor waited for the sons of man. And the remnant of Jacob shall be among the Gentiles, in the midst of many people, as a lion amongst the beast of the forest. And this is a future prophecy, but as you can see, our deliverance, okay, is tied to being delivered from the land of Nimrod. See that? The land of Nimrod, which that's Babylon the Great. See that? Call halal Yahweh Bashim Shai. So again, this is why we need the Lord, because again, they just said it. If Antiochus had these type of technologies, he could have stopped the Maccabees before they rose. You don't think they're going to try to use this to come after us? The scripture saying the serpent was wroth with the woman and went to make war with the remnant of her seed. See? Got that. Oh, and another, thing, because basically I asked, what was the family of Shem, Eber, and Peleg doing during the Tower of Babel? Okay? The Tower of Babel event is mentioned in Genesis 1 and 9, while Shem, Eber, and Peleg were listed in the genealogies surrounding this history. Here's a breakdown of what we know and what we can reasonably infer. And really, you got to be in the spirit. Shem's lineage. Shem was the son of Noah that lived long after the flood. Eber, sometimes considered the ancestor of the Hebrews, was Shem's great-grandson. Peleg was Eber's son. Okay? Let's see, Genesis 20:10 and 25. In Peleg's days was the earth divided. Many scholars in Jewish traditions connect this division with the scattering of the people after the Tower of Babel. So Peleg's life seemed to overlap the events of Babel. Okay, and then you have Eber, which is where we get Hebrew, showing you that the Hebrew survived because there was an obedience of a remnant of Israel at that time. Before they were called Israelites, there was a remnant of the sons of God during this rebellion that Nimrod had going on that weren't with it and most likely prophesying against it. Right? It says, what were they doing? The Bible doesn't explicitly say what Shem, Eber, and Peleg personally did during the Tower of Babel's construction. However, they were likely a part of a broader human community at the time. Traditions of the Jews, all right, sometimes suggest that Shem and Eber did not participate in the building of the tower, instead maintained faithfulness to God. And we don't need these books to know that, okay? But again, if that which is then is now, okay, ultimately we know in order for righteousness to have continued, there had to be a faithful group, remnant around this time, because immediately after the Lord scattered them abroad and broke up the Tower of Babel, okay, it goes into the descendants of Shem, or Faxad, okay, which Shem means name, legacy, reputation, fame, renown. So ultimately, it was through the obedience of these men, okay, that ultimately righteousness was forwarded. But eventually, some of them fell off. And then you get Terah, which was Abraham's father. They fell off and fell into idol with the same idols. But the Lord used Abraham to restore all things of this particular lineage. So it's a beautiful history. All right. I wanted to, kind of go into it. Let's see here. Shem and Eber possibly distanced themselves from the Babel project, remaining faithful to God. Okay. Their descendants continued the line leading to Abraham. Let's see. Who is Eber in the Bible and what is his importance? Eber is where you get the term Hebrew. Okay. And some Jewish traditions hold that Eber remained faithful to God and did not join the rebellion at Babel, preserving the language, possibly Hebrew. Yes, it is the Hebrew, when others were scattered with new tongues. He is thought to have passed down the knowledge of the Most High through his descendants, leading ultimately to Abraham. Okay, which before Abraham, we know there was a falling away. I said, could you explain Genesis, the 6th chapter? What were they doing? And the people were one, and they all have one language. And this they begin to do now, nothing they propose to do will be impossible for them. Again, when we look at the things happening, all right, in the earth, it mimics this, the same thing. Okay, but an even greater evil. It says, make a name for themselves, seeking human glory rather than honoring God. All right. They wanted to prevent themselves from being scattered because they had to be hearing prophecies from the chosen lineage. Again, you go to Genesis 11, okay? And they said, Genesis 11:4, this is what Nimrod and them said. Let us build a city and a tower whose top may reach unto heaven. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered abroad upon the face of the earth. So there had to be prophets out there saying that the Lord was going to break this thing up. And they heard it and they got scared and they tried to hurry up, but the Lord eventually, ruined it. Okay. So unchecked human pride, the phrase nothing they propose to do will be impossible for them suggests that left unchecked, humanity will continue defiant in pride and possibly even greater rebel against the Most High, man. So, yep, Nimrod as a tyrant in the Josephus. It talks about Nimrod. I'll read a little bit of this and I'll close it out. Nimrod as a tyrant and rebel against God. Josephus describes Nimrod as a power-hungry leader who wanted to turn people away from God. Okay? He convinced people to rebel against God, saying their happiness depended only on their own strength and not God's guidance. Nimrod led people away from faith. All right. The purpose of the Tower of Babel was defying the Most High. He also gradually changed the government into tyranny, seeing no other way of turning men from the fear of God, but bringing them into constant dependence on his power. Okay. They feared another flood and wanted to build a tower high enough to survive any future judgment. All right. And they, some say it was a ziggurat. Some say they literally tried to reach unto the heavens. It was just rebellion at the end of the day. But they were using these high places to call on the Most High. Call on their gods to deliver them from the plan of the Most High. He used his fear to strengthen his control over people, turning people's trust away from God towards himself. Okay? So, yeah, it was a government. So that they were trying to establish a one world order at the time of Nimrod. You see what I'm saying? And this is what they're doing here today. Okay? Everywhere you look, British government quietly rolls out digital ID in the UK to purge independent media websites. And these things are just going to gradually hit. Okay? Let's see. There was this particular article I think I saw here. Let's see if it comes up. UK government approved Gil Bates' plan to map the D to the N to the A of every newborn in England. There was this one where they used 3 people's DNA to create a baby. So, you know, it's just craziness, man. Craziness, man. So, the point was made. Okay, point was made. I just wanted to kind of tap into Nimrod. I mean, I know it was kind of, you know, rushed through, but, you know, you watch those other videos, you get more. But definitely, we're in the land of Nimrod all over again. All right, a technological sense. Shalom.